Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ian Bremmer of the Eurasia Group and G0 Media.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. And it is a really great pleasure of mine to open a conversation with the winner of Concordia's 2024 Global Leadership Prize. I'm going to introduce him to the stage. We're going to take a photo, and then we're going to sit down and we're going to talk a little bit about his company, his leadership, and the role in the world today. So please, if you'd put your hands together and congratulate Dr. Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer.
Thank you.
I think we're taking a photo. Wonderful. Please. Okay, no small number of topics. We're going to get to the world. What choice do we have? But I wanted to start a little bit just with background in the company. 175-year-old firm, big industrial, and you're known for innovation and technology and moving fast and shaking things up. How do you do that when you first get there? What surprises you? Like, what was the thing that once you became CEO, you said, oh my God, I had no idea that it was running like this?
Yeah. Look, I think it was more the work of my predecessor rather than my achievements that allowed me to take some bold steps. I felt when I took the helmet that during his tenure, Pfizer had fixed the innovative core. So I felt that now I can bet on the innovation and science rather than what Pfizer used to be at the time, a conglomerate of many businesses. So because of that, I took the courage to divest 25% of our revenues within a year. And we created two joint ventures, one with consumer healthcare, one with generics, so that we stayed only with the scientific core of the company. The second thing, of course, was that I had to change the money and how they are allocated. And I put a lot of investments in research and digital at the expense of administration. But you cannot change a company just by changing the portfolio of businesses or the capital allocation. The fundamental that you need to change is culture. And the culture of a holding company is very different than the culture of an innovative company. And I think that is the thing that surprised me the most. It is how much culture, doing it right or wrong, can play a huge role in what you want to achieve in a company.
What are the first steps? Is it more of a, I'm going to listen for a little while because I just showed up and I need to make sure I understand how that culture manifests? Is it, I've got to give a big town hall and show you I'm walking the walk before anybody else is? Like, what, in your mind, there are a lot of ways to do this. I'm not asking for self-help, but you've done it. So how did you do it?
Look, I'm 31 years with Pfizer. When I took the helmet, I was 26 years with Pfizer. So I knew what needs to be done. I was part of my predecessor's leadership team that built what they built.
Yeah.
And
that's how I met you.
And this is how you met me.
Yep.
And I went through a very big process that the board forces us to go, those were candidates, that we had to articulate a vision. And that was my vision I articulated. So the day I took the helmet, I knew exactly what I need to do, so I didn't have to let me wait and listen. Now, how you change...
You felt ready at that moment. You felt ready.
I was ready, and I knew what needs to be done. Right? So I started executing even before I take the helmet, because my predecessors were allowing. The second is that I was certain that when you want to change the culture, which I felt it is important, it's a lot of things that you need to do. From walking the talk, from having symbols that demonstrate this culture, for being able to write a story about the culture that it is easy to understand and remember, our culture was articulated in 4 values, 4 words. Courage. If you want innovation, you need to think big, you need to be decisive, right? Excellence. If you want to be successful with innovation, you need to focus on what matters. Equity, because if you want your innovation to reach everyone and to have good reputation, you must have it in your DNA, the equity. And joy, which is something that was a little bit different. For
Joy?
Joy.
You gave that to Kamala? Is that how that started?
Our lawyers are planning to ask royalties now.
Oh, that's fair enough.
From the campaign.
Yeah. So if, I want to make that move actually, which is changing the culture because the structure is changing is kind of essential. We're in an environment right now globally where the structures are changing, the balance of power is changing, the institutions are changing, the challenges are changing, but culture is sticky. You feel that in our country right now, you feel that around the world. How do you apply changing a culture in a company to changing a culture in a government?
That I will leave for others to comment, but I'm not
leadership
sure that,
is leadership, right?
I'm not sure that the culture was sticky. I think the culture changed. Maybe we don't like it, the way that it evolved, but the culture in the US politics is very different now than what used to be in Reagan or Carter era, right? And even earlier, Obama or before him. So Bush. So I think it's very different. It's way more polarized. It is way more confrontational, and it is way more driven in both parties from the extremes rather than from the common sense people. So that's different than what used to be. Now, do I like it? I don't. Do I want to see something better? Absolutely. What would take? Leadership. Will take the right leaders in both parties that they can stand up to the populistic and extremist views and say, no, this is where we go.
Now, you're CEO, a big company, a powerful company. You're one guy. It's one company. We've got the CEO community. We have, the business council. They come together. We've got the sectors, as the pharma sector, as biosciences. They come together. Who's effective right now? What are the mechanisms that you think leaders in the private sector, you and colleagues that you respect, can affect change that will make a difference for the people?
The truth is that I believe that those that should be talking about, let's say, and driving the change should be the elected people and not the elected by the board, like me, elected by the people, right? So, but also the truth is that politicians now enjoy very, very low credibility.
And trust.
And trust.
Yeah.
And the business leaders
higher.
are very high, in probably all times high. And that will be a lost opportunity if we don't try to speak up for things that we think are making also the country better, not only our purpose and our mission. Clearly, we are, as Pfizer, we are not commenting on everything that is happening, all right? But,
and I don't think of you as a particularly political CEO at all.
No,
yeah,
because should be my role. But I speak a lot about policies, not about politics. So things that can influence our ability to innovate, our ability to find cancer cure, right, are very high in my mind. So, and unfortunately or fortunately, unfortunately, it's not goodwill that will bring the cancer cure. It is significant investments in science. And for that, you need a framework, a regulatory framework, that it is helping rather than inhibiting. So I will speak about those topics.
Do you think that we are there's a lot of disinformation, there's a lot of backlash, anti-science, all of that. But in terms of the architecture you need to succeed globally, are you getting more of it, or are you getting more pushback as you think about where the world is heading?
It's counterintuitive, but or nobody would expect that after COVID, where the innovative life sciences ecosystem in the US was the one that gave the solutions to the whole world.
Everyone.
It saved the world for everyone, right? And there is a reason why that happened only here, right? You would expect that the frameworks will become more favorable, actually became more negative.
Why did that happen?
I think there is a backslash. The industry never had good reputation, and for good reasons maybe, but very unfair, right? And when the industry's reputation became so high when we saved the world with COVID, a lot of the political forces that this doesn't fit their narrative, they were very upset. So they tried, it was a reaction, okay, you're going up, I'm going to be even more, let's say, attacking you rather than less. And I think that's part of the reason of why that happened. And still, unfortunately, when I see the polls, it sells a lot to attack on Big Pharma.
And is that primarily a price issue? Is that primarily a perceived anti-competition issue? Where do you see that manifest?
No. It is more on the policies around protection of intellectual property. The way that science works right now, because it's highly proliferated, is not that Pfizer will place a singular bet like we did in the 90s. Cholesterol was the problem, statins was the solution. We put a bet on Lipitor, and that saved numerous lives, hundreds of millions of lives, right? But now we can't do it anymore because the biological targets that are known are zillion. And instead of statins, the modalities are also in the hundreds. So that's why we have developed a broad ecosystem of biotech companies. Those biotech companies, probably 98% of them will die. But each one of them has one target, mostly. And 2% will be successful. So for this ecosystem to work, first of all, you need someone to put the money. And that's the private equity. It is actually not the private equity, it's the venture capital. It is highly risk capital. And for them to do it, they need two things. One, it is intellectual property protection, because everything that this money will produce is a formula on a piece of paper. It's not infrastructure to drill for gas, right? It's very different. It's a piece of paper. So if you don't have that, you don't have anything. And second, an exit strategy. And all of them usually, I said 98% will die, but 50% will die in our hands because we buy them, right? So that's what...
Assisted.
Yeah, it's a system, right?
Yeah.
But that's what has produced the tremendous advancements in medical innovation right now. And both of these two things that I just said, the antitrust that unreasonable you can't buy a small biotech, and the second, which is intellectual property protections, I think are driving, probably we're living the worst period for the biotech industry right now. Not for the pharma, but for the biotech, yes.
It's interesting because when I think about, on the other side, on the AI side, and the technology companies, which are largely working in cooperation with the administration to write the executive order to understand what they don't understand. They desperately need the money in the small startups. Most of them are going to die. The ones that don't are all being bought up by the large platforms, all of that. But I don't see that kind of backlash. I don't see that kind of oppositional, we now have to find a way to squeeze.
I fully agree.
Why? Because you're becoming a tech company. At the end of the day, in many ways, you're becoming an AI company, and many in your. So in 5 years' time, the firm is going to continue to look very, very different. So if we're going to see that convergence, why is there a difference? Because
the reputation of the industry and the way that people thought for many, many years about this industry was providing a platform for populists to attack it. And we tried to fix a lot of these things, but I think the biggest contribution to fix it was that we produced innovation that people now see it and they understand the value proposition, why we need an industry like that to exist. And now the narrative is changing. Actually, if you see the last few years, the narrative has moved dramatically towards the middlemen in health rather than
Recently,
the pharma.
quite recently.
2 years, 3.
Yeah.
So it's shifting, but it's the first time, because that's the biggest scandal that you can see in a healthcare system, how the middleman operates. But nobody was touching it. Now they are. So I think things will change, and probably we will get more freedom to operate. But of course, we need to earn the trust of the people every day. Don't take it for given because you brought Paxlovid and the people are taking and say, thank you, Pfizer, that forever they will think that Pfizer, whatever will do, I like them.
Now, if we look globally, so many supply chains are being affected by political decisions, by geopolitical conflict as well. The nature of subsidy and sanction and tariff are growing as operational political tools. How is that, it's a global company, you're spending a lot of time, intellectual capital, money, in trying to have more access to the global south and providing lower cost treatments as well to the global south. How is that affecting you?
This, first of all, this affects trade and this affects international relations and as such affects us. But we are not among the industries that are heavily affected by tariffs or by the supply chain. In which aspect? That usually governments try to keep medicines out of sanctions, and even for Russia or for Iran, there are provisions that you can send your medicines because, a kid has cancer, is dying, needs your medicines. Right? So from that aspect, we are a little bit more immune. We are not like, also, we don't have, you can't give this technology to cure cancer to the Chinese, for example. We don't have that yet. Right? We do have it.
It's starting a little, the Biosecure
It's starting a little because of the
example.
Biosecurity Act.
Yeah.
I agree. So, as I said, I think it's affecting us and probably will affect us more. In the future.
Yeah.
And I don't like it, but we need to make sure that we navigate through it. From my perspective, I try to create for our company safety valves across all of that. I diversified. We have very, very little coming from China, for example, right now, to manufacture our products. Extremely little. Okay.
Compare that to 10 years ago. Roughly,
10 years ago, we had 4 manufacturing sites in China. Right, so no, when I took the opportunity to divest portfolios, I divested also them. But we tried intentionally to take that distance from that. And we are in a good shape right now. Now, China, we do a lot of business. We have a lot of our medicines there. We have great relations with the authorities because we are 35 years there. But always I'm concerned because we are an iconic US company. If something goes wrong and they want to make an example, they can go after us. So I don't like that. It makes me nervous.
So Albert, we're almost out of time. Great leaders are aware of their failings. What's the thing that you know you don't do very well, and as a consequence, you make sure that you get the advice to support?
There are people that they are more on the optimistic side of things, and people that they are more on the pessimistic side of things. I'm way into the optimistic
side,
side of things.
I know that about you. Yeah.
I am thinking that nothing is impossible, that we can make it happen, and we can deliver. And I think that was a very big part of my success, but also can become a reason of some big failures. So I surround myself with a lot of pessimists.
This is like the job interview when you say, what's my biggest failing? I try too hard. Albert Bourla, it's always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.